Hello pilots and welcome back to Flying with Overkill F-18C Hornet, and today we're going to be taking a look at delivery options for the rockets as well as the using the gun in air-to-ground mode. Now the first thing to understand about the rockets is it doesn't matter which rocket you select. Okay, so you come down here to your storage page and you can pick any of the rockets. You have 19 of the 2.75s and 7 of the 2.75s, and you have your Zoomies, which are 5-inch rockets. They're going to have a higher yield on the warhead, do a little bit more damage. But the biggest thing that you want to be aware of is once you select your rockets, you need to make sure you come all the way over here in the mission editor and select either your inboard and outboard stores and how you want them to deliver. This must be set inside the mission editor. Okay, so on your outboard stores you can set, for example, ripple. What this means is that when you depress the weapons release button to fire the rocket, all of the rockets in that pod are going to dispense. Okay, and single, obviously exactly what it sounds like. When you depress, for each time you depress the weapons release button, one rocket will spin off. Alright, so now that we've talked about that, let's go ahead and take a peek at what it looks like in the aircraft. Alright, so here we are back in the cockpit of the F-18. First, let's go ahead and set up everything for our attack. We have our master arm here set to arm. We want to go to air-to-ground mode, and then here on our stores page, we have our different rockets. Remember, I set the outboard stores to ripple and the inboard stores to single, but you can see they're both the same dispensers. Okay, they're both the 61s, but if we select 61R, okay, these are our ripples. So if the second I hit the weapons release button, all of the rockets in this pod are then going to fire. And you also have the option down here, you see single, we also have salvo. If we go to salvo mode, all of the rockets of the same type and same configuration will then fire. Okay, so that's what we're going to go ahead and do for this first pass. Coming up here to the HUD, you can see that we're in CCIP mode and we have a rocket count of 76. That's 76 rockets that we have currently selected. Okay, we can switch over here to the 61S's. You can see we have a total rockets of 152. The reason why we have 152 is because it's the total rockets on board when we are in the single mode. I'm not quite sure if that's by design or if that's a bug. So in singles, we'll see all the rockets. When we go to ripple, oh, now it's adjusted. So I guess you just have to cycle through. So that must have been a weird bug when you first load in. Sorry guys, it's been a while since I've used the rockets. So anyway, you can see that we have total rockets on board at 152. But that will change as we fire them off. Here we have our aiming reticle. Okay, now the idea is ideally you want to be anywhere between 8 and 10,000 feet is what I found, and you want your attack angle to be between 25 and 40 degrees is what I have found to be optimal at a speed of around 300-350 knots. You get much faster than that, you just dive down really quick. So I mean, if you're fast enough, that's great. But you want to put the center of the reticle on your target. And what we're going to get is, as we get closer and start approaching our target, we'll get a range cue, which is going to be a solid circle that's going to be on the inner side of this reticle. And there's going to be a vertical cue line that's going to start rotating around. And once it gets to a certain point where we're in optimal range, we will see the words "in range" pop up inside the reticle. We can then fire and, lay waste to the ground below. However, as we descend, and the faster we descend, or the more shallow we are, excuse me, we're also going to get what's called the breakaway X. It's going to be a big X that pops up on the HUD and starts flashing. And you'll see that in pretty much any air-to-ground scenario. And what that's basically saying is that we have fallen below a safe altitude and we are now in range of the debris that could damage our aircraft. So we want to make sure that we pull up before we get the breakaway X. But I'll make sure that we go low enough that you guys see what I'm talking about. Alright, so let's go ahead and see all this in action. So I've got our targets down on our left hand side. I'm just trying to gain a little bit of altitude. I'm a little low. There they are. Let's see if we can't get on those guys at the far end there. So I let it get to about my 45-degree line. I'm going to roll in. And everybody's got their own different styles of initiating their attack. We're doing about 30 degrees here. You can see the in range. There it is. I'm going to fire and pull up. Getting low so you guys can see the breakaway. Alright, we're not going to get the breakaway cue because it fired all the rockets. I'll show you guys with the singles, the breakaway. Let's see what kind of damage we did. So we did pretty good there. So again, what I did is, as soon as I hit the fire button, I slowly started pulling back on the stick. That way I got sort of that strafe with all those rockets. Okay. Now let's go ahead and switch to the singles. And you can see our rocket count has now changed, but the process is going to be the same here. I was also really fast on the dive down there too. Let's go ahead and go for these guys at the south or northwest here. I'm going to go for these guys up front. Let's zoom in just a little bit. There we go. Again, about 35 degrees on the attack angle. You can see our in-range cue drop in there. Okay, we're in range. I'm firing, 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 firing. Okay, I'm going to make sure that you guys see the breakaway. There's our breakaway X, letting us know we're getting too low. And we're up and out. Alright. So again, pretty simple stuff. Not real hard to manage the rockets. Just it's more of managing your speed and attack angle. And then just selecting what kind of delivery you want. Okay, now let's talk about the last thing, which is going to be our guns in air-to-ground mode. The first thing I want to show you guys is this. You can map inside the controls, select gun. Okay. Gosh, sorry guys. Now that seems really handy. Unfortunately, you do not want to use this to switch to guns in air-to-ground mode. Alright, so if we go to back to the cockpit and I use that binding, look everything that's happened here. We have jumped out of air-to-ground mode. We're in air-to-air mode. Our storage page has now changed and the attack radar has now come on. Okay, you cannot use the key binding on the HOTAS to get into air-to-ground mode. Okay, you must use the storage page. So let's go ahead and unpause and get us back into configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to air-to-ground mode. The other thing that we want to do is unbox our rockets before we select the gun. And this goes for any of the air-to-ground munitions. When you want to use the gun, unbox everything else. Go to your gun, and we have a couple different options. Here are the two different types of ammunition that can be stored on the aircraft that you can select between the two based on what you have. But the big one that you want to look at is this guy down here. You have high and low. This is the fire rate. High is going to be up at 6,000 rounds per minute, and low is at 4,000 rounds per minute. And low is what you typically want to use in an air-to-ground attack. Now, from here on out, it's going to be the same game, exact same principles what we saw with the rockets, okay? So we're going to come in. I'm not going to be as on track here. Oh, probably should remember to put my throttle forward again. Forgive me, guys, it's late. And so for this, I'm actually going to hold off because the same thing that applied to the rockets applies to the guns. Okay, the steeper the angle, the sooner you're going to get the in range, but obviously the faster you're going to descend. So you want to keep all that in mind. Start pulling her down here. Okay, we're coming down at about 40 degrees here. There's our in range cue.
Altitude. Altitude.
There's our guns out. There's our breakaway X. Pulled back a little low, and I got going really fast on that. That was actually a really bad attack. I was not managing my speed well at all. So let's go ahead and try one more time. Get our altitude back. And something else you can do is you can use your speed brake on the descent, sort of like the dive brakes, you know, on the old World War II planes, and sort of like the same way the A-10 does. Okay, now we're going to make this a little bit more shallow, which means we're going to get our breakaway cue. Well, maybe not. I might be able to avoid that. The more shallow your attack, the sooner you'll get the breakaway. So you'll get the in range, and then you'll get the breakaway right afterwards if you're real shallow.
Altitude.
So here we go.
Altitude.
On target, in range, and notice how the breakaway X came right after that. Okay, so keep that in mind. The faster you're going, the more shallow your attack, the sooner you're going to get the breakaway X. in close proximity to the in-range queue. Now, the in-range queue or the breakaway will not prevent you from firing the guns. It will not prevent you from firing the rockets. Just be mindful that you might swallow, a driver's seat into your intake or something. But anyway, guys, that is the long and short of guns and rockets in the F-18. Again, not much to them, pretty simple to use, a lot of fun to use, especially when you get good at it. Clearly, it's been a while for me. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe and hit the bell for notification of future content. We are just about wrapped up with the air-to-ground section for the Hornet. The next one will be on the Walleye. Once we wrap up the Walleye, we'll probably take a look at air-to-air refueling and then get into air-to-air combat. Okay, I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care and have a good week, guys.